Okay, so I'm gonna try to get this recorded and get this uploaded, but it's been a while since I've been out here. A few days, not that long, but long enough. Um, just your typical Nofap vlog update. This time around, I'm past the 2 week mark. I think it's Monday, so I think it's day 15. I'll have to check and then add the counter to the description. But past 2 weeks, gotten through my first week at work. Back at the old place. Things are all right. It's just work. Obviously, there'll always be the issues of like working up and out of where you're at, like when you're at ground level, like not getting pigeonholed, not getting stuck. That sort of stuff in the back of my mind. Like I'm glad I got this job, and I'm putting in my hours in. There's some logistics that need to be sorted out, in terms of like payroll and all that, but I can take care of that, and I'll at least have a paycheck, and I can be taking care of some financial issues, because the way I'm looking at it a lot is like there's all different aspects of life, and I got this job, so obviously I'm getting some more work experience. I've gotten back into the old place, but as long as I'm putting those hours, making that money, and I can be throwing that at my dad, so I can also be moving ahead financially speaking. And outside of work, I'm pushing ahead with these online courses, and hopefully by the end of next month I can sign up for an actual like college course. This time it's gonna be one of those sort of like retakes where I'm trying to get a higher grade than I got before on just like general chemistry or so. But a lot of these, it's like they're 4 or 5 units, so if you can knock those out with A's, it's like it'll have that much more of an impact, and I can hopefully speed up my whole process moving forward to get into graduate school. And I will have to retake that one other course, but it is what it is. Over the last few days, it's been kind of interesting. I try to make it a point, like every week, either Saturday or Sunday, to call my grandma. She turned 91 back in June, so like last month. She had her birthday. She turned 91, and I think it was a month before that. Yeah, back in May when it was Mother's Day, I made it a point to get her some flowers and some like a gift package, sort of thing. Had that sent over, and like I said, like I make it a point to try and call her. I'd rather have the memories of having talked to her while she was still around, and try and preserve enough of like stuff from that generation. Like assuming I get the chance to, obviously, like I want to call her tomorrow again. I was thinking of calling her today, again, because I've been talking with my parents about some stuff relating to my grandpa, because some old photos and such. Like I think there was this one that was him in his Navy uniform back during World War II, and I thought I had lost it, possibly, and I was like concerned as to whether or not that was a copy or if it was the original. And if it's just a copy, then if I get another copy made, that sort of thing, if she has the original still, stuff like that, wanting to sort of preserve that and hold on to that. And sort of the irony of like a lot of stuff in my life for the last several years has been sort of like, sort of dovetailing off of that, sort of event. Why it's affected me a lot is just sort of thinking about like, trying to live up to a certain legacy and sort of build myself up, and continuing on with this life of mine, and sort of asking like what's the purpose of it all, and wanting to preserve something of that and sort of build upon that. Because, I talked to her about a lot of this stuff, and interesting thing is, like, me and my age, like, I share a lot of the same viewpoints as her, from her generation, and, I find myself oftentimes diametrically opposed to my parents' way of viewing things. But, after I got done talking with her, then I, talked with my mom and then my dad, and, as much as there's been, like, friction between my mom and my grandma, it seems like, um, talking to my grandma, consistently as I have been, it seems like it's taken some of that heat off of, that sort of situation, and, as a result, like, my mom and my grandma have been talking more, and, it seems like they've been kind of working towards getting along a bit better, um, but, man, it's always like at this kind of point in sort of any sort of nofap streak where I'm, you know, sort of restarting almost like this detox cycle, that I start dealing with more of those emotions, and these different events and, stuff like that become more meaningful, and um, I get more affected by them, in a sense, and I'll end up talking about them way more. But I've gone and, like, looked at, like, old World War II footage, that's been colorized, and then thinking about my grandpa fighting in that war, and especially with, like, recent events with stuff that's going on in the world, and thinking, like, oh, is there another one of those, coming up down the pipeline, and how's that going to affect myself, my generation, and, this sort of, like, almost like, what's the word, like a synchronicity, of events, like, going down. And man, looking at my generation, the younger generation coming up, and just seeing, like, how sedated we are, and how just, like, not ready for, something like that we are. I mean, you think about PMO and how we've, man, I'm following this in sort of a stream of consciousness, sort of a sense, but I hope, maybe my sort of train of thought, you can kind of see, like, the direction it's going in. But we sedated ourselves for decades with PMO, at least it seems. I mean, depending upon how old you are and when you start seeing this sort of stuff, it was like for me, it was back when I was, like, in 7th or 8th grade. So it's actually been a couple decades for me. If you're younger, then obviously, less time, but for some of us, it's been quite a while. And then you kind of think of this in the light of, like, historical events and the difference between generations and the stuff that's really happening in the world nowadays. And maybe I'm becoming more aware of this because of having been on Nofap, and, graduating college, and being out in the workforce, and paying bills and all this sort of stuff. And just, when you start to sort of unplug from all those routines, and you start getting away from PMO, you start looking at the life around you and the world around you, and waking up to it all, like, you sort of start seeing all these connections, and you get sort of a vantage point on things. And I just, I wonder how this generation is going to handle things if stuff goes that way, since we've been so plugged into all this other stuff that's, fantasy, and it's like a compulsion and an addiction, and the sort of culture that's grown up around it, And one other thing that I've been thinking about has been this idea of, like, how, I can't remember when this thought popped in my head. I think I was most likely, like, sitting from my laptop on YouTube, and there's some of these funny clips where it's like, some of these, they call them streamers or influencers. Obviously, they're guys, throwing money at these girls, and, like, super chats and all that. And it's not like it's explicit content. It's just guys, like, kind of like simping for women, as they call it, throwing money at them and trying to, oh, if I put enough money in, this girl will respond to my comments, sort of thing. But I think I've been watching some sort of red pill content in tandem with that, but I got this understanding that like while the sort of sexual marketplace, the relationship marketplace, all that sort of stuff has become so skewed such that it's kind of no wonder that so many of us guys have such a deep-seated problem with PMO, like why it is such an issue. Maybe Gen X and millennial or Gen X and people from the Boomer generation and so on, they can't really comprehend why Nofap is such a big thing for us, why it's such a big hurdle, why it's such a life changer or game changer, why PMO is such a problem or an issue. At the very least, like if you're on Nofap, I guess one of the ideas, like in this sort of a expression that kind of rose in my mind, but it's sort of like, you know, rose up in my mind, to my mind's eye. I could see it that it's like this idea of like, at the very least, don't do violence unto yourself. And fapping is basically that. I mean, even in terms of health issues and such, like you are causing a whole lot of damage when you engage in that habit. And I get that a lot of times you're in that state of mind, you're like, oh, I don't care, I feel so bad, or I feel this, or that I'm horny, or I'm bored, or I'm sad, or I'm depressed, or I'm anxious, or whatever it is that you're feeling, that you're experiencing, that emotional state. But this whole idea of like, at the very least, do not do violence unto yourself, because that is essentially what you are, you're committing, and it's just so damaging. I mean, I'm dealing with this kind of stuff in my 30s, where it's like, I don't want to beat myself up about it, because I know a lot of the reasons why I got so much into PMO, and the whole like mental state and the way of thinking, the rationalizations, and even just the state of life, the environment I was in. It was such that it was kind of like, well, if he doesn't turn to alcohol or drugs, he's going to turn to something else, to sort of take the edge off of, the pain of where I was at in life, and but man, I gotta oftentimes like wonder, like, if I had learned how to cope with life a lot better, a lot earlier on, where would I be right now? Because so many of my fears or my concerns with life or the world as as things are unfolding around me, it's like I don't think I would feel so vulnerable to that sort of stuff if I was a few years ahead in terms of my sort of development as an individual, and in many ways I got Nofap to thank for even getting myself to this point, because I remember back in 2016, I got myself on probation that last time, on academic probation, and it was like turning to Nofap and getting that sort of thing going is like, that was so much the game changer that changed me and got me to where I'm at. But you still have those sorts of ideas or those questions or those thoughts of like, well, where would I be if I hadn't even gotten into PMO, or if I'd gotten out of that a few years ahead of time. But man, like looking at the world, and at least in large part due to a lot of the, I mean, I'm sure some of it is due to the sources of news and current events I go to, but because like some of the, I don't want to get off on some sort of a tangent, but the ones that are kind of considered like legacy media, like it's almost like I get this sense from them that it's like you could be on a sinking ship, and they'll be the ones telling you that nothing's going bad, because they're all the way up there in first class and they've got access to the lifeboats, but they'll be telling you down in the steerage that everything's a-okay even as the water is rising, and I would rather be, even if I'm erring on the side of being alarmist, or so, I'd rather be going to sources that are telling me like, no, there's a hole in the side of the ship, we just hit an iceberg and the ship's going down, and everybody needs to climb all the way up to the the top deck, and if you gotta fight for a spot to get on one of those lifeboats and get off of here, because get off of this ship, because otherwise we're we're going down with the ship and we're going to be all dead, that sort of thing. Like, and, again, I think like if I was just a few years ahead in terms of like finances, education, etc., like I wouldn't feel or experience this sort of state where I feel like I'm so much under pressure and I'm having to grind, or slog to get, to a point where I feel like, okay, I'm like safe and secure, Um, and a lot of my experiences in my day-to-day life, it's little things here and there where it's like not much seems to happen externally, but it's sort of like I look at the way my life is and I'm kind of like, okay, this is a state of affairs I'm going to have to deal with for however long it takes me to get to a point where, I've got no debt, I'm in much better physical shape, PMO is no longer an issue, etc., such that, I can pick up and move to wherever it is I need to move to be as safe and secure as I can, because, man, where I'm living at, I mean, I'm surprised that, like last year, the stuff that was going on didn't reach to where I'm at, because it was like literally like even a few, how far was it away? It was like maybe like between 3 and 5 blocks away, which seems like a lot, I guess, maybe to some folks, but it's really not that far of a distance as to where a lot of the stuff was going down. And, it's, man, like, it wasn't like I was scared per se, like I was able to sort of power through it. And even people told me, like, man, you're taking all this stuff really, really well. Like, we're all getting stir crazy and we're all concerned about this and afraid of that. And like, you seem to be just kind of rolling on through it. But, it was sort of like I had to take that stoic mindset and make the best of the situation. And I did pretty well, relatively speaking. But still, like, man, this is why you can't sedate yourself. You can't be sedating yourself from the outside world, from the anxiety and the source of disruption and whatnot. You can't be doing that. You can't be going and running and hiding from your problems. You can't be engaging in violence against yourself, essentially. Taking that boredom, that horniness, that anxiety, whatever, and just, doing that onto yourself. Like, the world is moving forward to where it's moving at an increasingly breakneck speed. And if you're just like, sedating yourself and distracting yourself, like, eventually reality is going to come knocking on your door. And, if you're not ready for it, it doesn't care. Like you'll get demolished by it. And it doesn't have to be some super dramatic, like movie-esque type way of like, zombie apocalypse or something crazy like that. It could just mean that you don't got the money to pay the bills, or you get sick with something, or, whatever it is, And as I say this sort of thing, I have stuff in the back of my mind. Oh, I need to take care of this. I need to take care of that. I might have to pay extra on this, pay extra on that, fees or fines or whatever, stuff that I'm thinking about. But I'm still aware of it, and I'm still, attempting to confront that and, to confront these challenges and overcome them and fix that sort of stuff. But I'm able to do that at this point because, I've chosen to, at the very least, reduce the amount of sedation in my life that I'm engaging in, if not getting rid of it entirely. And I'm trying to, like, increase this amount of time that I'm away from that, because honestly, like, in the long term, and this is why I'm so big on Nofap for, like this channel is a Nofap channel predominantly. I may expand to other topics, but, I'm so big on that because it's like, in the long run, your life's just going to get worse if you keep sedating yourself and distracting yourself and trying to hide away from anything that might cause any level of anxiety or any challenges you're facing in life, with this sort of stuff. And it's not going to be good in the long run, So, What else? Still working on those online courses. I'm trying to knock out as many of them as I can, and if I can, like let's say generate code or so, then I try and upload that to my GitHub. Working away at things. We'll see what happens in the future, but right now it's kind of like taking care of my four walls and making financial progress. Like the student loan I'm working on, I want to get that paid off by sometime in September if I can. Then I can move on to my car loan and get that paid off. And I'm so obsessed with like financial freedom that that's so much of what I'm focusing on. Like when I'm on Nofap, I'm focusing on stuff like that, as well as my education and so on. But it's just like, you got to be working on something, and you really need to be working on those necessities, and necessities such that your life improves. And hopefully, if we all do the work, we'll get to a much better spot, and we won't be feeling so vulnerable to the upheavals that we may see around us in whichever society we live in. Because I think that's sort of like a lot of the key to anti-fragility and not being so frazzled by events in politics and culture and so on. If you feel like you're in a strong position where you at least got control over your own little corner, your own little fiefdom of the universe, so to speak, that stuff just isn't going to affect you as much, whether in terms of your mental health, your physical health, your financial health, etc. And that's sort of the key, I think, to focus on, sort of the main drive to go towards, or to engage in. But anyways, let me see. Yeah, it is day 15. I'm thinking about that, but it's day 15 on Nofap, and I'm gonna continue on with what I've been working on, and hope for the best. So anyways, enough of my rambling. I will see you folks around. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for sticking around. Take care, and good luck. Bye-bye.